You might think your silence is just space. You might believe your absence is neutral, but to a woman who once felt your presence deeply, your disappearance is an emotional earthquake. Let me tell you what a woman actually feels during your absence. She feels confusion before clarity. In the early days of your absence, her entire world becomes a puzzle with missing pieces. Her mind spirals, looking for logic in a situation that offers none. She wakes up in the morning with a weight in her chest, the kind that makes her question if it was something she said, something she did, or something she failed to do. She replays every conversation the two of you had, dissecting your tone, your expressions, your pauses, and the silences in between, trying to uncover some hidden clue that could explain why you're no longer there. She opens old messages, rereads them again and again, not for nostalgia, but for evidence, for answers. In her heart, she starts to debate her own reality. Was the connection even real? Did she imagine the closeness, the tenderness, the way you looked at her like she was the only woman in the world? And if it was real, then why did it end so silently, so suddenly? She feels betrayed not only by your absence, but also by her own judgment. She begins to doubt her instincts, her ability to read people, and her capacity to trust. What hurts more is the lack of closure. You're gone, but you left no explanation, no confrontation, no good. Bide. Just space, and within that space, she's left to create stories, reasons, possibilities that torment her. She checks your social media, not out of obsession, but to feel some sort of connection to your current reality, to see if your world is still spinning while hers has paused. She notices the small things, your online status, a new photo, a post that feels like it's indirectly directed at her, and each of these becomes a trigger. Confusion turns her into a detective and a prisoner at the same time. She's searching, analyzing, decoding, but every answer just leads to more questions. Sleep escapes her. Food doesn't taste the same. Her body may still go through the motions of her routine, but her mind is somewhere else entirely, stuck between your last conversation and the one that never came. Her friends may tell her to move on, to forget, but confusion doesn't let her. Confusion wants clarity, and until that clarity arrives, she's trapped in a loop of emotional uncertainty. Your absence becomes more than silence. It becomes a haunting, a question that plays over and over in her thoughts. Asterisk, what did I do wrong? Asterisk, and then, somewhere within that confusion, a seed of self-awareness begins to grow. It doesn't erase the doubt, but it starts to challenge it. She begins to see that maybe the confusion isn't a reflection of her flaws, but of your inability to communicate. That maybe the problem wasn't that she wasn't enough, but that you didn't know how to handle someone who was. But until that seed grows into something stronger, she's left in the storm of not knowing, battling herself, grasping for meaning in the void you left behind. She feels an aching nostalgia for the little things. When you disappear, it's not just your presence she misses, it's the quiet, often overlooked moments that come flooding back with a weight she never expected. It's the warmth of your hand resting gently on her back while walking side by side, the sound of your laughter echoing in her ears during random conversations, the way your eyes would meet hers across the room, silently communicating things that words could never express. These aren't grand gestures or cinematic memories. They're ordinary fragments of life that now feel like sacred relics from a world she can no longer access. She misses the comfort of routine that had you in it. The little morning greetings, the late night chats before sleep, the casual jokes, the way your presence would soften her stress after a long day. She starts to crave those mundane habits, because in them she had found emotional safety. Suddenly, making coffee in the morning feels different because you're not there to ask how she wants it. The sound of the door unlocking feels more hollow now because she used to anticipate your footsteps. Even the silence in the room has changed. It's no longer peaceful, it's suffocating. She notices your absence in the most unexpected ways. A certain song plays, and she's immediately pulled into a memory of driving with you, your hand on the steering wheel, the wind rushing in through the windows. She walks past a restaurant and is hit by the scent of food you once shared, and it almost brings her to tears. She sees someone wearing your favorite color, and for a moment her heart stumbles, as if her body is bracing for the impossible hope that you might still be near. These moments are haunting not because she wants them to be, but because nostalgia is involuntary. She can't control when it strikes or how deeply it wounds her. Her memory starts to romanticize the past. Even if things were imperfect, even if there were cracks beneath the surface, her mind clings to the highlights. It plays a highlight reel that edits out the arguments, the distance, the misunderstandings, and instead replays the warmth, the comfort, the love, real or perceived. The human brain does that. It softens the pain by amplifying the joy, but in doing so, it also deepens the longing, and she feels that longing like a physical ache, a dull pain that lives in her chest, reminding her of what she no longer has. She doesn't talk about this nostalgia with others, not because she doesn't trust them, but because she fears they won't understand. How can she explain that what she misses isn't just you, but the way the world felt when you were a part of it? How can she make someone else understand that even your silence had a rhythm? Even your presence in the next room made her feel less alone. She keeps those feelings inside, turning them over quietly like stones in her pockets, more constant reminders of a connection she still hasn't fully let go of. She feels nostalgia not as a memory, but as a presence. It walks beside her, it sleeps with her, it whispers during quiet moments. It makes her wonder if you think of her the same way. Do you remember those little things too? Do you ever miss them? Or has your life moved on so effortlessly that the space she used to occupy has already been replaced? That wondering creates an emotional echo, one that she tries to silence but can't quite ignore. Nostalgia is not just sentimental, it's tormenting, because she knows she can't go back. She can't relive those days, can't rewind to the time when everything felt aligned. And so she tries to recreate meaning in her present. But every new experience is tinted with the memory of what used to be. That's what makes your absence so powerful. It doesn't just take you away. It leaves behind the ghost of you in every corner of her life, turning memories into both comfort and curse. She feels a battle between longing and dignity. It's a war she fights in silence every single day. There's a part of her that aches to speak to you, to reach out and shatter the unbearable stillness that has grown between you. She stares at her phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard, drafting messages she never sends. Messages that begin with "I hope you're okay" and end with unsent vulnerability. She deletes them before sending, every time, because her pride whispers louder than her heart. That voice inside her tells her that if you cared, truly cared, you would have already made contact. That she shouldn't have to chase clarity from someone who made the decision to go silent. And yet, the longing doesn't disappear just because she chooses not to act on it. She still imagines hearing from you. She checks her notifications and, for a fleeting second, allows herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, you've remembered her. that you've finally realized what she meant to you, that you've regretted walking away without explanation. But when your name doesn't appear, when your silence continues, she feels both wounded and hardened. Her longing is emotional, but her restraint is deliberate. She refuses to betray herself by chasing someone who left her in the cold. There's an emotional exhaustion that comes from constantly denying that ache inside, from pretending she's fine when the silence eats away at her spirit. She dresses up, smiles in public, posts photos that say I'm moving on. But inside, she's at war. She wants to be seen, missed, remembered. But she also wants to be respected, even if it means letting go of the person she once thought was everything. That tension between needing you and needing to love herself more becomes a daily tightrope walk, one that demands courage with every step. And the worst part, she still thinks of you in her quietest moments, when the world slows down, when she's alone in her room, when there's no one left to distract her. Your face, your words, your energy come flooding back. But instead of acting on those memories, she holds the line. She lets her silence become her message, because if you truly cared, you would have filled the gap with presence, not absence. If she matters, you'd show her, not make her guess. And in that battle between longing and dignity, something inside her begins to shift. She realizes that the very fact she's holding back, that she's refusing to lower her standards for closure, is strength. It's not indifference. No, it's deep, raw emotion channeled into quiet resilience. She loves, but she loves herself too much to beg. She cares, but not enough to betray her inner peace. She misses you, but she knows missing someone who doesn't reach back is just another form of self-sabotage. So she keeps walking, one silent, dignified step at a time. She feels anger not always at you, but at herself. At first, the dominant emotion is sorrow. It's the kind of quiet sadness that creeps in without warning, the type that stays in the corners of her heart and makes everything feel slightly heavier. But over time, that sadness simmers and shifts. She begins to turn the focus inward, and suddenly the sorrow morphs into frustration, not just with what happened, but with how she allowed herself to get pulled so deeply into something that now feels one-sided. She becomes angry at the version of herself that ignored the warning signs, that kept giving chances, that kept believing your words, even when your actions started to tell a different story. She remembers the times she stayed up late waiting for a response that never came, the moments she overcompensated, sending a sweet message, planning something thoughtful, giving you space when you pulled away, all while hoping that you'd meet her halfway. But you didn't, and now, with the benefit of hindsight, that makes her blood boil. Because she sees it clearly now, how she bent, how she compromised, how she gave the benefit of the doubt again and again, while you slowly began to disappear in plain sight. She didn't just feel abandoned by you, she felt betrayed by her own judgment, her own willingness to stay hopeful in the face of growing indifference. The anger festers in silence. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet and internal. It shows up in how she critiques her past decisions, in how she replays moments where she should have stood up for herself, but didn't. She remembers the times she swallowed her feelings just to keep the peace, and each memory cuts a little deeper now. She starts to resent the softness she once viewed as strength, because in the aftermath of your absence, that softness feels like naivety. It feels like she handed over her emotional power without even realizing it, and that realization stings more than the heartbreak. She feels anger at how easily you slipped out of her life, how effortlessly you withdrew without explanation or effort. But more than that, she feels fury toward the narrative she built around you, the one where you were emotionally mature, invested, genuine. That story she told herself about your potential, your hidden depth, your misunderstood heart, begins to fall apart, and what's left isn't just disappointment in you, it's disillusionment in her own hopes. She mourns not just the relationship, but the version of herself who loved blindly, who tried too hard, who held on when she should have let go, and that anger begins to reshape her. It's not bitterness, it's transformation. It becomes fuel. She starts to create boundaries, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She stops excusing inconsistency, stops romanticizing mixed signals, and starts demanding clarity from the very beginning. Her anger isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming her voice, her sense of worth, her emotional sovereignty. It becomes the fire that burns away the illusions, leaving only truth behind, and that truth, however painful, is liberating. Because for the first time, she's not angry at the loss. She's angry that she ever settled for less than she deserved, and that shift changes everything. She feels a quiet evolution happening inside her. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but within her, something is slowly, steadily transforming. The pieces that once felt shattered by your absence begin to rearrange themselves, not into what she once was, but into something stronger, more self-aware. She starts to reclaim her mornings, her routines, her time. At first, it's mechanical. She goes through the motions, still haunted by memories, still fighting the urge to check if you've reached out. But with each day that passes, those thoughts lose their sharpness. Her focus begins to shift from you to herself, not out of ego, but out of survival. She starts reading again, books she abandoned when she was too busy waiting on texts that never came. She revisits old hobbies, picks up new ones, and realizes that there were entire parts of herself she had neglected while being emotionally consumed by the relationship. She pours her energy into growth, mental, emotional, spiritual. Where she once looked to you for validation, she now begins to cultivate a deeper connection with herself. She doesn't do it to prove a point to anyone, especially not to you. It's simply that something within her refuses to remain broken. She notices this shift in small but significant ways. She stops stalking your social media, not because she doesn't care, but because she no longer needs to. Your updates don't control her emotions the way they used to. She starts choosing solitude over half-hearted company, peace over drama, reality over fantasy. She lets go of the illusion she once clung to and sees you, not as a villain, but as someone who was never equipped to love her the way she needed. And that clarity isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. It begins to settle deep in her bones. This evolution is subtle, and no one else may see it, but she feels it in her core. In the way she walks a little taller, in the way she speaks more confidently, in how she no longer apologizes for needing what she deserves. She's not just healing, she's reinventing, and that process is sacred. It doesn't erase the hurt, but it reshapes it. It makes her wiser, more discerning, more grounded. She no longer chases potential, she waits for presence. She no longer compromises her standards for connection. She honors her boundaries like a ritual. She's becoming someone new not because she wanted to, but because your absence forced her to confront every broken part of herself. And instead of collapsing, she chose to rebuild, not with bitterness, but with intention. Every choice she makes now comes from a place of knowing her worth. And this evolution, this rebirth, It's not about you. It's about her reclaiming everything she once gave away without realizing its value. She feels a quiet evolution happening inside her. It begins as a whisper, barely audible beneath the noise of grief, confusion, and anger. At first, she doesn't even notice it. She's still caught in the tidal wave of emotions your absence left behind, still clutching to the echoes of what was, still caught between memories and questions. But gradually, like the slow rising of the sun, something inside her begins to shift. It's not dramatic. There's no lightning strike, no grand awakening. It's subtle, like the way seasons change. Imperceptible at first, but undeniable with time. She begins to stop looking outward for closure. She realizes that the answers she once demanded from you may never come. The apology she longed for, the explanation she hoped for, the gesture she imagined, all of it might remain unsaid and undone. And instead of being broken by that realization, she begins to accept it. Acceptance becomes her quiet revolution. It doesn't mean she condones what happened or that the pain vanishes. It means she refuses to let it define her anymore. She no longer waits for you to return and make things right. She starts making things right for herself. Her routines become sacred. The morning coffee she once made for two becomes a moment of self-care. She starts going for walks not to clear her mind of you, but to fill her soul with presence. She reconnects with friends she distanced herself from while she was consumed with your world. She starts listening to music that uplifts her, not music that keeps her trapped in the melancholy of missing you. Slowly, she becomes her own anchor, her own source of strength, and as this evolution deepens, her perspective changes. She starts looking back on the relationship not through the lens of longing, but through the lens of learning. She sees the red flags she once ignored. She acknowledges the ways she lost herself trying to please someone who never truly saw her. She admits how often she silenced her intuition just to hold onto the fantasy of what the two of you could have been. But instead of drowning in regret, she uses those insights to evolve. Every misstep becomes a lesson. Every hurt becomes a step on the staircase of her growth. She no longer measures her value by your treatment of her. That's one of the most powerful shifts of all. Where she once questioned her worth because you withdrew, she now sees that your actions were not a reflection of her inadequacy, but a reflection of your own limitations. She stops personalizing your silence. She stops internalizing your emotional absence. She understands that your inability to love her deeply wasn't proof that she was unlovable. It was evidence that you didn't know how to hold something as real and raw as what she offered. This quiet evolution makes her more self-aware. She starts to recognize the patterns in herself, how she gave too much, forgave too easily, tolerated too long. But instead of judging herself, she holds those parts with compassion. She doesn't try to erase who she was. She integrates it into who she's becoming. She's no longer desperate to prove her worth to anyone. She's not waiting to be chosen. She's choosing herself in small, consistent ways every single day. She may still miss you. She may still feel a flicker of pain when your name is mentioned, but that pain no longer consumes her. It no longer dictates her choices or clouds her clarity. She starts to build a future that has nothing to do with the past. She begins to dream again, not of being with you, but of becoming fully, unapologetically herself. She starts creating goals that inspire her, taking risks that scare her, and embracing opportunities that excite her. Her evolution isn't loud, but it's powerful. It's in the way she no longer needs to explain herself. It's in the boundaries she sets without guilt. It's in the moments she chooses peace over chaos, solitude over shallow connection. She's becoming emotionally self-sufficient, spiritually grounded, mentally sharp. And it's all happening quietly beneath the surface, while the world around her continues as if nothing's changed. But everything has changed. Inside her, a woman is being reborn, not out of revenge, not to prove a point, but because pain is fertile ground for transformation when it's met with intention. She's not erasing the story you were part of. She's just writing a new chapter, one where she is the author, not the supporting character. And in this chapter, she's not just surviving, she's evolving. Every step away from the pain is a step closer to her truth. And in that truth, she finds something more lasting than love from another. She finds power, the kind no one can ever take away from her again. She feels peace, but it doesn't come quickly. It arrives like the tide, slowly washing over her, pulling back and returning again, each time staying just a little longer. At first, peace feels foreign, even uncomfortable. Her nervous system has been so used to the tension, the waiting, the emotional roller coaster, that stillness feels suspicious. She questions it. Can she really feel calm when her heart was once in turmoil? Can she really stop thinking about you when, for so long, her thoughts were tied to your name, your presence, your validation? The early stages of peace aren't silent. They are filled with doubt. She's not even sure she wants to stop feeling the pain, because pain, in some strange way, still connects her to you. Letting go of the hurt almost feels like letting go of the last piece of the bond that used to be everything. She fights it, not out of weakness, but out of habit. She reopens the emotional wounds sometimes just to see if they're still bleeding. She looks at old photos, rereads old messages, not because she wants to go back, but because the silence feels too loud. Peace feels like forgetting, and forgetting feels like betrayal. To the love she gave, the time she spent, the pieces of herself she poured into something that ended in your absence. She resists healing at times because healing means truly admitting that it's over, not just on the surface, but deep in her bones. And that finality is terrifying. But over time, the resistance fades. Not because she forces it, but because her soul gets tired of carrying weight that no longer belongs to her. She gets tired of checking her phone for messages that never come. She gets tired of justifying your silence, of pretending that distance was space for growth when really it was a door slowly closing. She begins to realize that holding on to pain doesn't keep the connection alive, it only keeps her stuck. And slowly, without even noticing it at first, she begins to choose herself in small, gentle ways. She takes deep breaths without immediately feeling the urge to cry. She sits alone in silence and finds herself at ease rather than consumed with longing. Peace starts to grow in the places where pain once lived. She begins to feel it in her body. Her shoulders relax. Her sleep improves. Her laughter returns, not forced or hollow, but real. She finds herself smiling at memories, not because she wants them back, but because she's grateful for what they taught her. There's no bitterness, just quiet understanding. She begins to accept that not every story ends with closure, and not every connection is meant to last forever. She understands that some people come into our lives to shake us, to teach us, to break us open, so we can rebuild stronger. And when that realization takes root, peace follows closely behind. She no longer flinches at your name. It doesn't trigger the emotional spiral it once did. She can talk about you or hear about you and remain grounded, not because she's numb, but because she's no longer tethered to the outcome. She's not waiting for you to change, to return, to explain. She has created a new foundation beneath her, one built on her own self-respect, self-awareness, and self-love. Your absence is no longer a defining part of her identity. It's just a chapter in her story, one that led her to herself. This piece isn't about detachment. It's not about pretending she never cared. It's about integration. It's about knowing that what you shared was real, and also knowing it's no longer needed. It's about holding the memory without being consumed by it. She can carry both the pain and the growth, the love and the loss, and still move forward with clarity. Peace for her is the quiet confidence that she'll be okay, not because someone else says so, but because she's come to know it within her bones. She starts to make plans for the future without wondering how you would have fit into them. She builds dreams around herself, not around a relationship. She values solitude because it no longer feels empty. It feels full of potential. Her mind becomes quieter, her heart steadier, her boundaries firmer. Peace gives her back the power she once scattered trying to hold on to something that wasn't holding on to her. And in this stillness, in this softness, in this profound calm, she finds something even deeper than closure. She finds liberation. Peace becomes not the absence of emotion, but the presence of wholeness. She learns that peace isn't forgetting, it's remembering without hurting, and by the time you notice her glow, her silence, her strength, it's no longer for you, it's for her. There comes a moment in her journey when she no longer needs to force healing. She simply begins to live. She walks through the same spaces that once felt haunted by your memory, and nothing inside her breaks. She can listen to the songs you once shared and not feel the sting of loss. Instead, she feels a softness, a quiet acceptance. Her heart doesn't race at the thought of you anymore. There's no desperate urge to reach out, to fill the silence, to reignite something that once defined her identity. The absence becomes a part of her landscape, not a void, but a cleared space where she's planted new seeds. She starts to appreciate the person she has become through the very pain that once threatened to consume her. She doesn't forget how it felt when you left. She doesn't erase the parts of herself that grieved, that waited, that broke open. She remembers them, but she holds those memories like well-worn stones, familiar but no longer sharp. She no longer flinches at their touch. They are just part of her now, not wounds, not scars, just quiet evidence that she survived and grew. And by the time she reaches this place of stillness, of clarity, something about her begins to change. You might see it too, though from a distance. Her glow is different now. It's not the light of someone seeking love or approval. It's the radiance of someone who has reclaimed her energy. She's more rooted, more selective, more present. She laughs fully. She speaks with calm authority. She walks into rooms and owns her space, not because she wants attention, but because she knows she belongs. She no longer needs to tell her story. She no longer needs others to understand why she changed or how she got here. She doesn't seek validation for her growth, because she feels it in her bones. She's done the inner work, the quiet, brutal, invisible work that no one applauds. The nights she cried without texting you. The days she showed up for herself when it would have been easier to chase comfort in old patterns. The moments she chose to feel everything rather than run from it. That's where her power comes from. Not from revenge, not from performance, but from presence. You might notice the difference in her tone, the way she no longer asks about you, no longer waits for you, no longer holds space for your return. You might sense that your window to re-enter her life has closed, but she won't say it outright. She doesn't need to. Her silence says everything. Her detachment isn't cold, it's peaceful. She doesn't hate you. She doesn't need closure anymore. She doesn't need you to come back and fix what was broken, because she did that herself, piece by piece, moment by moment, until her heart no longer bled, until it beat freely again. And in this version of her, the one that emerged from your absence, you might find a strength you didn't recognize before. She's no longer trying to prove anything. She's no longer waiting to be chosen. She's already chosen herself. She's no longer operating from a place of emotional scarcity, where your crumbs of attention felt like a feast. She's fed now, by her own life, her own passions, her own people. She doesn't chase, she doesn't beg. She simply exists brilliantly, unapologetically, and without attachment. Her strength isn't loud, but it's undeniable. It's in the way she moves with grace. It's in her unwavering boundaries. It's in the peace that radiates from her, a peace that came at the cost of everything she once clung to. You may think she glowed before when she loved you, but that was a reflection of her hope. Now she glows because she is whole, not because of you, not despite you, but because of everything she learned in your absence. And by the time you feel the urge to reconnect, to tell her you miss her, to acknowledge the depth of what was, she's already lived 100 lifetimes without you. She's already found laughter in new places, love in new forms, meaning in spaces where once there was only loss. Her silence isn't a punishment. It's not revenge. It's her evolution made visible. It's the sacred quiet of a woman who no longer needs you to hear her, because she finally heard herself. So, if you ever wonder what a woman feels during your absence, understand this. It's not just silence, and it's never just waiting. It's a journey, a collapse and a resurrection. It's a war between memory and identity, longing and dignity, grief and growth. She feels everything, and through that feeling she transforms. By the time she reaches peace, she no longer seeks to be understood by you. She understands herself, and that is the most powerful place she will ever stand, rooted not in your presence, but in her own.